Shalom. This week we are reading Parashat Devarim, beginning the book of Deuteronomy. And Parashat Devarim, the first section in the book of Devarim, always falls out on this particular Shabbat Chazon, called so for the first words of the Haftorah. It is the opening section of the prophecy of Isaiah. This week we have also begun the month of Menachem Av, the Compassionate Father. Is there a connection between Parashat Devarim, the first section of the book of Deuteronomy, and this week, Shabbat Chazon, the kind of infamous Shabbat that precedes the calamitous day of the 9th of Av, and now the beginning of this month of Av? It has a certain tone and texture in the whole iconography of the Jewish people. So what is the connection between the opening section of the book of Deuteronomy and this season? I mean, it's not a mitzvah to read the Parashat Devarim on this Shabbat, but it always falls out that way, and this is certainly not for naught, but indeed this is something that has tremendous meaning. And you know the whole section of Parashat Devarim as it begins, it's quite well known that these are words of rebuke. These are the words that Moshe rebuked the children of Israel, and he did it in such a way as to not embarrass them. And essentially, Moshe rabbenu, he gave a whole kind of panoramic review of all of the different times throughout the desert sojournings that the children of Israel annoyed the Almighty. And he did it in such a way that he would maintain their dignity, that he would still maintain a certain level of their self-respect and their self-confidence, but he did it in such a way that they would understand what he was saying. But this is truly the level of the rebuke of a tzaddik and a leader who really loves his people. And the whole idea of Devarim, Dibur, it's a language which connotes a certain kind of harshness. What's really interesting to reflect upon is the fact that just recently we were reading the blessings that Bilaam, the wicked Bilaam, blessed, as it were, the children of Israel. And we know very well that he had intended to curse the children of Israel, but it came out as blessings. And in fact, they're really the most beautiful blessings. It's one of the most beautiful parts of the Torah, if we can say such a thing, these wonderful blessings that Bilaam gave over to the children of Israel. And now, as we begin the portion of Devarim, we find that Moshe Rabbeinu, our beloved leader, before he took his leave of us, he actually gave us words of harsh rebuke, albeit in his inimitable fashion, in a very gentle way, as gentle as he could. So what's the story here? That Bilaam, who hated the Jewish people, and who really was their sworn enemy, and who had no love lost for them whatsoever, and who they didn't have a good place in his heart, he blesses them. And Moshe Rabbeinu, who is the beloved, dedicated leader who put his people above his own life, he went and he gave them harsh words of rebuke. Now, our sages point out that if Moshe would have given the blessings, the people would have said, well, of course he's blessing us, he loves us, but what significance does it really have? Maybe Hashem doesn't really love us. He has to say good things because he loves us. And if Bilaam would have delivered the curses, then they would have said, well, of course Bilaam is cursing us, he hates us, but what meaning does it really have? But when Bilaam gave the blessings, then the people of Israel were able to see that all of the haters and all of those that stand against them and all of their enemies, they'll be broken by Hashem, and they really have no power. And Hashem can arrange it that their worst enemies are the ones that deliver the blessings. And by Moshe Rabbeinu, who really cares about them, by him giving the tochacha, these words of admonition, and indeed, there are words here of tochacha, of admonition in this portion, we're able to see that it wasn't really that harsh after all, that God doesn't wish them any ill, God forbid, that he doesn't harbor any malice towards them. It was coming from love. It's like a king. This is the analogy that the sages give. A king has a son who's going off the path a little bit, and he has to arrange for someone to give him some harsh rebuke. And he does that through a loved one, so that the son understands that this rebuke is coming from a place of tenderness. It might be harsh, but it's coming from a place of love. And it's amazing that in the words of this rebuke, and really this is a course of study in itself and something that everyone should look into to try to understand the depth of these first few words of the portion of Devarim and all of these allusions, the different names, the different places, all the different sins that the Jewish people did. He did in such a way that he wouldn't really sacrifice their honor and their dignity. And then all of a sudden, in the midst of these words of rebuke, we read, verse 9, I said to you at that time, saying, I cannot carry you alone, And then we read, Hashem, your God, has multiplied you, and behold, you are like the stars of heaven in abundance. May Hashem, the God of your forefathers, add to you 1,000 times yourselves, and bless you as he has spoken of you. So in the midst of the, as it were, harsh words of rebuke, Moshe is giving them the most beautiful blessing and saying, you know what, you should be 1,000-fold what you are now. And that's obviously not someone who has any sort of malice or ill will. And so indeed there really is a connection between everything that we're talking about, Parashat Devarim, and this season right now, Shabbat Chazon, the Shabbat preceding Tisha B'Av, the month of Av, the whole concept of the destruction of the temple, because the rebuke of the month of Av, the destruction of the temple, we're still waiting ourselves to rebuild. It's all the aspect of the compassionate father, Menachem Av, the father who is broadcasting to the child words of rebuke and the action of rebuke, but tempered with tremendous compassion and tremendous love. And everything that he does to bring us back to him. And so certainly the connection between this portion, the words of rebuke of Moshe always falling out at this time of the month, right before Tisha B'Av, Moshe's words of rebuke, tempered with compassion, are a reflection of the rebuke of the Almighty during this month, the rebuke of the destruction of the temple, which is designed as a father calls to his children, rebuking them to bring them back and to inspire us to rise up and rebuild the temple.